Hey guys, Valky here. You might know me as the color caster for E7WC 2024, and it has been my pleasure bringing you guys the story of the most diverse metagame to ever grace Epic 7's RTA scene. So today I have for you guys a definitive tier list of the power level for many of the playable units in RTA. So whether you're a new player trying to catch up to understand E7WC or a returning player wanting to level up your game knowledge for the rank ladder, this is the video for you. Special thanks to my guild Veritas, specifically Wind Demon and Dirt, for double checking my homework. Let's begin. S tier is the apex of the metagame. These units here are so strong, strategies are fully constructed around them. And at the absolute head of that is Blood Moon Haze, whom after his buff has become the apex predator of E7. He has some of the tankiest base stats in the game, owing to being a Pisces Soul Weaver, and he deals fully defense penetrating damage throughout all of his skills, has a strong chance to attack twice, and once a teammate of his falls, his ultimate does double damage, and when he successfully makes a trade kill against his opponent, he can revive his dead team into a zombie army, which makes him an asset in any strategy. He's honestly so strong, I'm sick of talking about him. Let's move on. Death Dealer Ray is the complete package if you do not mind playing debuffs. He can dispel immunity, hard crowd control, rain down venoms, and detonate that for massive damage on your opponent's maximum health for injury as well. And oh yeah, he enables his team to do the same thing. So not only is he a toxic stall shuckle, he lets his entire team become toxic stall shuckle, meaning he is strong versus everything in the game besides cleave, which can end the match a little bit too fast before he can get his team going. Janua? Oh man, for the veterans here, you can think of him like a release Hua Young, one of the few heroes in E7 to ever earn a nerf. Honestly, most of his kit is decently fair until you realize, oh, put Wind Rider on him, and not only does it skyrocket his already strong damage, he is now impossible to reach behind stealth, and he's so hard to get rid of. He's gonna be like that drunk guy at the bar constantly trying to get your number. He is by far the best DPS unit in the game as long as you're faster than your opponent. Laya is, oh god, you guys can think of her like a Meteor Coeric. She can cleanse all debuff, and on top of being able to decrease your allies' cooldowns, protecting them from these cooldown increasing openers, which are some of the most OP in the game, by the way. She also teams up with them naturally well, lowering their cooldowns, and you guys can see where this is going. This makes her a must-have if you're not playing an aggressive turn 1 strategy. And oh yeah, her ultimate, it lets her one-shot pretty much most units in the game, so have fun with that. So let's move on. I don't want to talk about her either. Sea Phantom Politis. Every part of her kit is just too damn good. Her ultimate strips all buffs and pushes back the entire enemy team, which creates a lot of space for you to play the game. The Enrage buff gives her native synergy with top tier units like Janua and Ambitious Tywin. She is perma-stealth. She blocks half of all of your opponent's focus and fighting spirit, which dropped all resource character by a whole tier, and on top of all that, she can dual attack with the highest attack ally, an absolute insane package of a unit. Her only weakness is her second tier speed behind these guys following her, but the speed aside, her tools allow her to thrive in any team composition. These three guys you can think of as one unit. They are the biggest winner of the third pick Vanguard meta. Ran and Peyra specifically made a strong comeback, especially if you ban Zeo like myself, and you just pick them third, and when you do, your opponent will think twice about racing you as they have the fastest base speed in the game. This is standard practice for all turn 1 players. New Moon Luna is very proficient for a opener. She's very self-contained, fast, strips all debuffs, AoE seal, with her only weakness being cleanse if you don't follow up with her properly. I thought she was strong, but not S tier strong, but the boys did remind me that you can play her turn 2 thanks to her effect nullifier, put immunity on her, and her S2 with low cooldown, splash damage, and a defense break will cycle her, saving your S3 for a big moment or outright holding your opponent's cooldowns hostage, so she's strong in any position. Dragon Bride Senya follows closely behind. She can cleave, she can nuke, she can cleanse, tank, and protect one carry. She does everything except for debuff, making her one of my favorite units not only to play and watch, but that kit is 90% of all things you'd ever want in a turn-based strategy games. Her synergy with squishy DPS units who can easily let her passive activate is why she is a strong turn 2 and a turn 1 unit. Last of the S tier is Ambitious Tywin. He's up here with the rest of the best, not because he's really good at one thing like Janua or Ray, but because because he's equally okay at everything. He doesn't have a single bad matchup in the meta, anywhere from cleave to stall, and for a tank, his damage is nice. He can cleanse a round of debuff, which makes him clutch versus high quality, low quantity debuffs like Monk. He can burn souls away from team compositions like Laya, and on top of all of that, he can be played flexibly, which is one of the biggest boons for any unit, because being flexible allows you to hide his strategic importance of your strategy from your opponent, and it gives your opponent more rooms to make misplays. A tier units are stronger than the rest of the units in the game for one reason: they're either played with or against the meta-defining units. You guys should be familiar with most of these units, but one of the newest additions is Albedo. Albedo was already strong on release, but as a definitive turn 2 legend strategy developed, the I want to end legend strategy, Albedo emerged as a core part of that team comp. With a damage reduction passive comparable to Crimson Armin, she is generally considered slightly better as she can both be built as a tank on protection set and Aureus or on counter and 3F. I'm sure you guys can tell from the meta units, having the ability to keep your opponents guessing is a very important step that will lead to their misplay and your win. She's a staple for turn 2 players. Gala Lilius has always been a solid unit, being able to chunk high HP units, but with the best units in the game all being high HP and slow units, Gala Lilius has very quickly taken her position as one of the must-haves in the game. If you're a turn 1 player, you're making a speed build and an effect resist build for turn 2 players. Next up is Dragon King Sharoon. Just like Ran and Peyra, third pick Vanguard means you can punish early death dealer Ray, and at that point your opponent is down a whole unit, as Ray stall is a very common strategy, countering with Sharoon on 3, and she can't be banned there to cleanse that sleep and enable her cascade buff lets players who can draft flexibly flip the script on one of the most consistent and oppressive winning strategies and take points off of them. Eternal Wanderer Ludwig and Requiem Roana are the best cleave bridges in the game. They are almost must-haves for turn 1 players. Also benefiting from Ran and Peyra's comeback, and most certainly after Luna is released. Ludwig is the half that deals more damage and pairs better with Ran due to his defense break, and Roana is the one that pairs better with Peyra since they play into the debuff composition more. Either one of them can be essential if you play their respective enablers. And the last one I really want to highlight is Bunny Dominion, who went up a tier. That's a direct cause of third pick Vanguard opening up compositions like the Ran, Peyra, both units alongside with the other few openers like Noctwol or Conqueror Lilius means as long as you're not guaranteed turn 1, you'd want to keep a Bunny Dom in your back pocket and turn the tides in those matches. All of the units in A tier shape and define their respective roles and playstyles. They might not be as strong as or as impactful as their S tier counterparts, but you'll find your playstyle difficult when lacking these units from this pool. Specifically, Sid and Wanderer Silk not being as strong as Ran and Peyra, but if you're a cleaver, mirror matches will feel like an uphill battle if you do not have them geared. B tier units are generally more situational. If you're new to strategy games, what that means is if you pick them in the wrong spot, oh boy, that is not a good look. You will be punished, but if you pick them correctly, they will be an absolute force for your opponents to deal with. Solitaria is probably the first one to come to mind. Fell off a little bit, but she's still very strong if you're trying to play a debuff or stall composition. Her niche before was that she counters focus units like Remnant Violet and Sylvan Sage Vivian, but after Sea Phantom Politis, she's just picked less often as Politis is more flexible. In a very similar vein, Hangai used to be an A tier unit, but after Laya came out, there is just simply less scenarios where you would want him over your Laya, who is not only stronger, but also a green 5-star unit. A lot easier to get than a Moonlight 5-star unit. Elena creeps up in power not only as she's one of the few ways to stop Noctwol, Ran and Peyra's resurgence has also beckoned her forward on the power structure. Airwell and Last Rider Crow are two tanks that fell down a whole tier. Airwell mostly due to the amount of buff strips that came into the game, and she simply doesn't work if she doesn't upkeep her escort buff. Last Rider Crow as an HP HP scaling bruiser just doesn't work as well as units like Blood Moon Haste, Dragon Bride Senya, and Laya. Arbiter Vildred, after his exclusive equipment, went up huge in stonks. Even though he can still be counterplayed, the exclusive equipment gave him a lot of reliability and brought forth the fact that he synergizes very well with the meta golems like Haste and Senya. His flexibility in builds to go both bruiser and full damage keeps your opponent from being able to commit a hard counter against them if they're not sure which build you're on. So in that sense, he's almost like a more flexible AoE damage based Janua. Arya saw a huge bump in usage for 3 reasons. Well, what are those? What are the 3 strongest pure DPS characters in the game, guys? Well, it's Janua, Landy, and Gala Lilius. Despite being a blue unit, Gala can hold her own against all 3, which is why she is almost a must-have for turn 2 players. Savior Auden took a pretty big step down almost exclusively for one reason: Janua. Yeah, her counterattack is good, but when you pick her, she gives Janua a free pilot's license to fly in the airspace above her. If you're a turn 2 player that bans Janua, I do think she's as good as ever, but otherwise she is not as strong when Janua came into the game. Last piece, Corinne got a real nice bump in usage after her EE as well, giving her the power to sweep out slower stealth-based units. However, the fact that she must set up with her Bankai first means not only is she weak to something like Bunny Dominion, but anything like a Politis or Celine can establish sufficient threat against her, not to mention all the faster units. She's a solid assassin with a glaring weakness as well. Top model Luluka actually got a stealth buff after her actual buff because there was a buff that bumped her base speed to 119, which leaves her on par with the likes of Conqueror Lilius, Sea Phantom Politis, and Lua. Having a book carrier, being an opener that's also a nuker and a CR pusher at the speed bracket actually provides a huge level of flexibility and strength that's surprisingly strong in the right hands, as there are a few top model Luluka mains skulking the rank ladder. I'd compare her usage to like that of a garrote wire. Not everyone is going to know how to use her, but those who do can wield her with deadly precision. The last member here is actually fairly surprising: Fire Araminta. After her exclusive equipment stealthily creeped up the power ranking due to one thing: her ability to overload the I want to end legend draft, the Ray stall, which usually only takes ambitious Tywin as their debuff cleanse. While that is strong, they are quite easily overwhelmed by a high amount of debuff, which Araminta absolutely brings. Even though she's a speed character, her main usage is for anyone to shut out or force a post ban against a stall comp player that does not have any debuff cleanse. And what a force ban here does is she either gets banned by your opponent's post ban, or she will just outright win you the match. C tier characters, at least for E7WC, when you see them picked on picks 1 and 2, that player has just made a misplay and most likely have lost their match. But if you see them picked on 4 or 5, they're usually pulling a post ban, and if they don't, they will put in the work. Here you'll find more niche characters, and what I mean by that is someone like Fumir, who is a premier debuff cheese composition. Benevolent Roman countering Zeo and Sea Phantom Politis as well, or Remnant Violet punishing AoE attacks that lacks burst damage. Architect Leica probably took the heaviest hit as she became much harder to play through units that can landmine, non-attack skills, soul usage, or her subpart base speed. Still strong, but you're going to see her a lot less. Ocean Breeze Luluka and Lionheart Sirmia are the 2 biggest Sea Phantom Politis victims, dropping 2 whole tiers. Taeyu's exclusive equipment actually did him a huge favor. He's a rare pick, but resetting an entire enemy team plus another turn for the highest attack unit means he's very strong within the enraged line and even solid without them. Wukong on release was actually placed much higher since he has excellent matchup versus the meta golems in Senya, Haste, and Laya. His number 1 issue is that 1, he's weak to debuffs, and 2, whenever he gets crit by any character, he is just gonna get chunked. Without a way to heal back like Navy Captain Landy with counterattack and salvo, he's just not very strong for a lot of turn 2 players. Infinite Horizon Akadi stays strong versus New Moon Luna meta, but faces some challenges in other matchups, so C tier is her home. Faithless Lidica Cleaves took some fat L since last season, as the connecting units for her are usually very target selection specific, which plays terribly into Blood Moon Haste and Dragon Bride Senya compositions, leading to her fall off. Rampera coming back into the game also didn't do her any favors, since her base speed is much slower compared to them and is at a huge disadvantage in a race. Roana and Biblis fell a bit in power as well, since they're usually picked against specific counter-attack units like Navy Captain Landy or Blood Moon Haste, but since third pick Vanguard enables these early Blood Moon Haste or Landy picks to swing into a full cleave, it is much riskier to take either one of them since they do not have any way to defend versus cleave. D tier. So the epithet we can best come up with this tier is when you see someone in a tournament draft any of these units, the reaction amongst the RTA community is generally, oh boy, he's cooking. Because why would they take some of these units when there are just better versions of them higher up on the list? Once again, this is specifically to high levels of play like E7WC or in top 1 to 200. In lower skill brackets, these units can perform just as well as some of their contemporaries. Chief amongst which is Spectre Tenebria. This one actually hurts me a bit to admit, but in what universe do you pick her over Janua or Galililias, who can do much more damage, pick off a kill, and then enter stealth anyways with their Wind Rider? If you need a book for cleave, you want Politis or Requiem Roana, as they have better utilities as a book carrier. With the increased amount of AoE damage in the game, it's just not rewarding enough for the risk you're shouldering just to pick up that Spectre Tenebria. Fire Lilius is another pretty good one. A lot of times I see people pick her versus Lua compositions just to watch the Lua player outplay her anyway and run her team over. If you've never seen a high level Lua player, they got options, man. You can skip the Lua S3 to not trigger the Lilius passive, or you can even take a Fire Politis to counter trigger that Lilius passive. There are just too many ways to outplay her, and most of the time you prefer someone like Laia to bring your team back on track. Usually when these units are picked, there is more to be lost than to be gained. Unless your aim is to be funny or you don't have the better options, those are fair reasons. Like for example, Ainz is a really funny unit when he works, but when I'm trying to win in a tournament or try to seriously climb ranks, I probably won't take him. E tier. Oh boy. Honestly, any unit can go in here. You can put in your Guild War Defense Kisei in here. You can throw in your Rift Boss Kane in here. You can even throw in, oh geez, I don't know, your Ancient Inheritance Ludwig in here. Honestly, the possibilities are endless. But in high level play, if you see a player take this, like for example in a tournament like E7WC, it's usually not a really good sign for them and generally shows that they're desperate and they're on the rope. But in casual RTA play, even going up to champion rank, you can definitely use some of these units if you want to cook. It's not like it's impossible for these units to win, but they're just not very good at it. Let's call it that. And with that, that is our tier list for the E7WC patch. Whew. Do keep in mind that this list only covers the overall power levels of these units, whereas in the actual matches, drafting for team synergy and to counter your opponent's strategy is still the #1 winning play. So with that in mind, who do you guys think is going all the way for E7WC this year? Who are you guys rooting for? Let me know down below. If you're one of the newer players to RTA and you got somewhere lost in the videos when you heard words like bridge, force ban, landmine, don't worry, the next video I'm releasing should be able to cover all of the community's keywords that are used. If you have specific ones you'd like to see in that video, let me know in the comments section down below, and subscribe to make sure you're in the loop the moment that video drops. If you learned something today, you can help me back by giving the video a like. That type of stuff helps small creators like myself very much. Thank you for tuning in to the video today, and I'll see you guys on August 10th or 11th depending on your time zone, alongside my partner Divine for the main stage matches. It is going to be a good time. Stay safe out there. I'll see you in the next video. See ya.